All right, good morning. We are so excited to be back here again at the School of Pharmacy. I'm Kate Gibson, and this is the second year that we've held the That Difficult Patient Is Me lecture series. Thanks, Dr. Kraus, for being a big supporter of this endeavor. All right, so I'm Kate. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm a psychiatric and mental health nurse practitioner. I graduated from VCU School of Nursing this past May. And most importantly, I love working with other healthcare profession students or healthcare professionals in or seeking recovery from substance use disorders or any other mental health disorder. I'm a certified peer recovery specialist as well. I'm also an ambassador for the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation. I really strongly encourage you to check out this foundation. A lot of their work is centered on policy changes, which can improve the language on medical licensing applications at the board level so that they're less inhibitory. We don't want people to be afraid to get the treatment they need for a substance use disorder, and they should be able to get the treatment they need otherwise. Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation was unfortunately founded after an emergency room physician, Dr. Lorna Breen, who is a native of Charlottesville, tragically completed suicide after working in the emergency departments during COVID. She did not feel like she could get the help she needed. So her family has spearheaded this campaign that has made real lasting change on a national level. And we hope to bring some of that work here to the VCU campus as well. So if you're interested in that, feel free to contact me. Part of that campaign is the Healthcare Workers Have the Right to initiatives. I invite you to scan this barcode at any time to learn more about some of the changes they're looking to make, which include the fact that we have the right to get accessible and affordable mental health care. This includes for substance use disorders. That we deserve equal privacy and mental health care as well. As of July 2024, in the state of Virginia, hospitals are not required to report you to a licensing board if you are voluntarily seeking treatment for a mental health or substance use disorder voluntarily, if it's less than 30 days. If it's more than 30 days, the treating physician can write a letter supporting that, but you should not be treated unfairly because you've made the correct and right decision to prioritize your health and your recovery. We want people to get the care they need, whether it's for diabetes or heart disease or cancer or for a substance use disorder. And healthcare workers also have the right to confidential, professional, and physician health program support. So there are a few programs here. We do have some information and brochures on the pharmacy recovery program, their peer recovery program back there. And our speaker, Dr. Leggett, can also chat with you about that. And Johnny Moore here also is going to be a good resource for that program as well. And for all healthcare professionals in Virginia that are licensed or seeking licensure, there's the Virginia Physicians Monitoring Program. So healthcare professionals monitoring program. So I'd be happy to give you more information about that as well. Education and training, like dates like this, to inform especially students of some of the options they have available to them. And a supportive pathway for reentry. Oftentimes when a healthcare professional or student of a healthcare profession does need to get treatment, they do need to refrain from practice for a period of time and to demonstrate that they are taking the necessary steps to be able to return to practice safely. So we want that to be a supportive reentry and not a punitive one. And then also confidential peer support. I'm a peer and Dr. Leggett is a peer. And there are a lot of peers in this room. And so we invite you to engage with us and chat with us. If you have any questions, even if you're not someone that needs services, maybe you have a peer or a friend or a family member, we would love to support you in that. All right, so a little bit about the Virginia Healthcare Professionals Monitoring Program. It is not the board. It is completely separate from the board. Its mission is to ensure that you are safe to return to practice. Nobody has the right to practice unsafely, whether it's due to a poorly managed mental health diagnosis, So an example of that would be practicing while experiencing mania or a substance use disorder. We don't have the right to do that, but we should have the right to be able to return safely. You do have to be licensed to be in the monitoring program. It includes an assessment period followed by an individualized treatment contract and monitoring contract. And this will include things like randomized drug testing, attendance at peer meetings, or any other type of individualized treatment plan, and then eventual discharge from that program. So you can check them out online. And if you just have general questions, you can call them confidentially. Until you've completed a contract, they're not monitoring you. So if you have questions, give them a call. Here are some general resources on mental health wellness and recovery wellness. Again, feel free to take any pictures you would like. We have the Employee Assistance Program if you work here at VCU Health. Rams in Recovery, who is the sponsor for this endeavor. Tom Banner there is your point person. So if you are a student and needing support or know another student that might need support, let Tom know or check out their website. And just a moment about language. Words do matter. People who are recovering from or have a substance use disorder may choose to use language that they identify with and are comfortable with, such as addict, alcoholic, drunk, user, things like that. Most people might find this language a little uncomfortable or stigmatizing, but sometimes people in recovery find it very empowering to take back that language. So you may hear Dr. Leggett use some of this language, or if you're talking with me, you might hear me use some of this as well. However, we do ask that you have the consideration that if you're referring to someone with a substance use disorder, use person-centered language, such as, Kate has an alcohol use disorder versus calling Kate an alcoholic, things like that, just to really identify that we're talking about the individual and not their diagnosis. All right, and so now I have the distinct pleasure of welcoming Dr. Nikki Leggett. She is a long-term advocate for recovering health professionals, and she is very committed to reducing stigma and broadening the availability of care. With 18 years of continuous sobriety, Nikki shares her experience as to what it's like to enter recovery as a pharmacy student, how she navigated the various stages of her career as a pharmacist in recovery, and how sobriety has impacted her practice. Dr. Leggett completed her undergraduate program at Virginia Tech in 2022 before graduating from Shenandoah University with her PharmD in 2009. She's a longtime member of the Virginia Pharmacists Aiding Pharmacists Program, VPAP, which we have brochures for on the back table. Nikki has experience with aiding other pharmacists as they enter into recovery, as well as providing peer support for recovering pharmacists. She's a pretty cool lady. She currently practices at Walmart Pharmacy and owns and operates a farm in Gretna, Virginia, with her husband, Will. She's a very proud wife and mother of 3 amazing daughters, and her life is abundantly full for both she and her family, to which she credits her ongoing recovery. So if you will, please welcome Dr. Nikki Leggett.
Hey,
You're welcome. I'm gonna trap myself in here.
nice to say. Yeah. I'm not gonna be behind there because I'm too short, so I'm not here. And hopefully everybody can hear me okay. But it is a pleasure to be here and an honor. I'm extremely grateful to Kate to asking me to be here. Again, I'm Dr. Nikki Leggett, and I don't have a lot of experience here at VCU. I went to pharmacy school at Shenandoah, so when I was on my way here, Kate was like, "Would you like to meet me at your house?" I'm like, "Yes, this is like out of my comfort zone. I'm from the country, so hopefully, y'all can identify with some parts of me." But it really is neat to be here, and this is an amazing opportunity to be in school if you're a student or just to be practicing. So I want to just encourage all y'all to, soak up as much as you can, because looking back, I wish I had spent more time in enjoying pharmacy school and undergrad. But anywho, so I'm here just to kind of give you a little bit of background of what it's like to be someone in recovery and kind of how I got here. I don't know how much experience you guys have with recovery or addiction. Most people have somebody or know somebody that either has issues with substance use or is in recovery. I feel like more now it is a little more accepted than it was back when I got sober, but it's still quite the stigma out there in terms of, being available to people and, kind of being willing to say what needs to be said. And that's a big part of my story. So I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia. I am an only child. My mom and dad were great parents. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was an engineer. So it was like kind of the, uh, classic perfect childhood. I was very loved, and my parents, did things with me. I got to play Little League baseball, and I just, was full of life, a sweet, kind child. But from early on, like I really never felt like I fit in. I just didn't get it. And you might not have known that talking to me because I was like a happy, smiley, bouncy little girl, but I just didn't feel comfortable in anything. And that kind of was a theme through my whole life of just being unsure of what my place was. So, like I said, only child. My parents were very caring, but I'm also the child of an alcoholic. My mom was. Um, it is. I mean, she is truly like the most beautiful, elegant lady you'll ever meet. But when she drank, she just wasn't present. And so I spent a lot of my life, like most kids in the 80s, like very unattended to. I was very free range, but it was a little different because I wouldn't be able to like wake my mom up to help me or things like that. So I became very self-sufficient, which is an asset, but it's also too not the best when paired with addiction because I thought I could manage all this on my own. And I quickly found out that, well, actually, I didn't quickly find out. I very begrudgingly discovered I would need help. So I spent my whole childhood in the same town in Lynchburg. High school, I was what I thought was a typical high school student, but looking back now, I didn't do things the same way as everybody else. I was not always the most present. I kind of back up a little bit. Like even in elementary school, I didn't fit in terms of I almost failed out of second grade because I would just stare out the window and daydream and not focus. And I had a lovely teacher that would stay with me and help me and drive me home. And these are things that like patterns of me just not really understanding directions and being able to navigate life like a normal person that looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, I could have maybe used some help early on. But anyways, so I was always a risk-taking type of person. I liked adventure and the thrill, and that's a good thing, but it's also too can be dangerous. And so, when I was in high school, I remember when I was over at a friend's house and her parents had this largely stocked liquor cabinet, and I was like, let's drink. And she was like, okay. And me being the hunting, fishing country kid that I was like, oh, there's a bottle with the turkey on it. Let's do that, And she's like, okay. And we lost the top to the bottle and she was like panicking. And I'm like, that's the point to drink it all, right? And she didn't think that was a good idea at all. But anyways, from that moment, I was like, this is what it's about. Like, this is how, life is supposed to be. I felt warm and safe and like everything was going to be all right. And that was early. I was, maybe 12, 13 years old. And from then on, I just found a crowd that always wanted to do that. I was always with much older people than myself. And I always seemed to feel like I fit in that crowd much more than my peers. But there also was the underlying current of drinking, drugs, not safe behaviors. And now as a mother, that terrifies me. But anyway, so going through high school, I was able to get decent enough grades to stay in school. And that, most alcoholics and drug addicts, I'm not like, I'm so smart, but they're not dumb. I mean, people that have substance use disorders, it takes a lot of mental effort to get sick and, stay that way and stay alive and keep a job. So, I was not ill-equipped in terms of I could get through my academics, but, processing through life was a little more challenging. So by my 10th grade year, I was like, I need to quit drinking. And I'm like, I don't even have a driver's license yet. And I'm like, I've got a problem. I just probably just smoke weed and I'll be fine. And that was not the best choice either. But, I kind of fumbled my way through school. And by the time I got to the end of high school, I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to get stuck in Lynchburg, Virginia for the rest of my life. Like, I got to do something to get out of here. And so I took all AP classes, made straight A's, went to Virginia Tech with a ton of credits, and was a pretty unhappy person. I really wasn't drinking or using much at that point. I'd already had like some consequences in terms of like blackout drinking and people not wanting to associate with me because I was too volatile, or there was just bad things happened around me, and so they just would avoid me. So I thought, well, I'll get to Virginia Tech and things will be better. And they were to a degree. So I went in as a biology major. I wanted to go to vet school. I thought I'll digress a little bit. I actually thought about going to Hollins too. And this is kind of to give you a background about the type of person I was. I rode horses all through high school, and Hollins had a great riding program, a great creative writing program. So I was like, maybe I'll go to Hollins or maybe I'll go to Tech. And I went to visit both. And at Hollins, I get there and to visit, and I'm stuffing envelopes with some girl for like the Young Republicans. And I'm like, oh, this is not exciting. And then there's not any political affiliation. I was just like, well, why are we doing this in college? And I said, well, what do you do on the weekends for fun? What do you do? And she's like, well, we go to Hampton Sydney. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, because the boys are at Hampton Sydney. And I was like, well, why don't you just go to a school where the boys are there? Like, I don't understand. And then I went to visit Virginia Tech after that, and the people there took me to a party, and we like danced on tables all night. And I was like, oh, this is where I belong. Much better. So anyways, but when I got to Virginia Tech, I was still quite studious. School wasn't hard, but I made it hard on myself in terms of just being miserable. I studied all the time, and I didn't have a lot of extracurricular activities. I had a much older boyfriend who worked and was going into the military, and I was just generally unhappy, but not drinking a whole bunch, So by the end of my freshman year, I was thinking, well, maybe if I get involved in something, I'll be happier. And, I'd grown up riding horses, so I joined the riding team. And I immediately found the people that liked to party the way I did. And, but they were all seniors and done with their school. Like, they didn't have a whole lot of like core classes. They were in their electives and such. And, but that's where I found out there was always somebody willing to do, less than responsible things. And but I never really seemed to grasp that really wasn't how people were all the time. That my filter for seeing the way life is already at that point is very different than it is today. So me as an alcoholic and drug addict, I don't have the same perception when I'm drinking and using. Like, it's like I can say Kate's wearing a blue shirt today, but then it's like you see something completely different, and it's your reality, and it's so bizarre to somebody that's not in it. But once you're on the other side of it, it's like you're like, why was I ever like this? But anyways, so all through college, I managed to make okay grades. I went to most of my classes. I did not realize there was an ecology class at one point in time that I'd signed up for and failed it because I never even went to it. I didn't even know I was in it. So my level of responsibility was not great. And I had a lot of situations where I should have said, maybe I need to slow down. Maybe this is a problem. I ended up in intensive care at one point for alcohol poisoning, and I was just real mad at my roommates for sending me there. Like I didn't think, oh, that's dangerous. I was just like, that's really expensive. So when I was getting ready to graduate from Virginia Tech, I was just heartbroken. I didn't want to leave Blacksburg. It was the best place on earth. And I still love Blacksburg. It was, there's a lot to be had there other than, you know, drinking and such. But I was like, what am I going to do? Because at this point, I had decided that I probably didn't want to go to vet school. I worked at the vet school all through college, and I was like, I'll never be able to take people's money, like, or if they don't have the money, I'll just fix all their animals for free and I'll be broke. And this is just not, I won't be able to do this. And so I got out and I was like, what in the world am I going to do? And I really did like science though. Like I am a born nerd. Like I really like love science and how the body works. And I've always been a very caring person. Just because, I used didn't mean that I didn't care about people. I did. I became incapable of putting them before my addiction. It just turns it around. And so, but I graduated and I was like, Lordy, I'm back in Lynchburg. And my aunt worked at the hospital in town and got me a volunteer position there in the pharmacy. And I'd taken a drug chemistry class, which was my favorite class. And I was like, oh yeah, pharmacy, this will be fun. And I worked as a technician, and I was like, yeah, this is the deal. Like I like this a lot. So I applied to pharmacy school, and I was telling them I chose Shenandoah because I was really scared of Richmond. I got here, I was like, I will be lost or just at the bar, never getting out. I was like, I will not survive Richmond. So I'll just go to Shenandoah. It'll be much better there. Quiet into the hills and the mountains. It'll be fine. Um, and I thought, well, and I'll be around all these professional people and it'll be great. I'll get this all straightened out and, that was just me being young. So I get there and within like the first week, I'm just the same thing. Like wherever I went, there I was. And that's a common phrase that you'll hear in recovery. But it's also too like we're like magnets, like people like me. Like I just found people that just drank and used like I did as soon as I got there. And I was not looking for them. They just like attached. And I was like, well, here we go again. And I was thinking that Winchester would be like Blacksburg, and it is not. I got kicked out of the bar like the first like week I was there, and I was like, people are mighty uptight up here. But I, enjoyed pharmacy school. I went to class. It was much. There was a lot more accountability in terms of like, the teachers knew who you were, and so you had to be there, which was great because like Virginia Tech, you kind of slotted in and out. There was a whole lot of us there. But at Shenandoah, you needed to be there. And I enjoyed lectures. I really thrived on what I was learning. But at this point, alcohol was pretty much a daily part of my life. I did not have the capability of really doing a lot without it. It started out where I would just drink in the evenings when I would get home. And, it was like I would drink wine, so it really wasn't that bad. And I eat like dark chocolate, so that like made it fancy, and I was not, drinking too much. But it quickly became that where I would start at, 5, and it would be like 4, then it'd be like lunch. And the fellow that I was dating at the time, he was on his second DUI. He was not in pharmacy school. He came with me from Virginia Tech. And so, I'm driving him all around, have all this chaos in my life. And my roommate is like not real enthused with me. And I'm just thinking, well, maybe the solution is just to do this a little differently, not to stop, but to do it differently. And also by this point too, I'd had some injuries riding where I got introduced into opiates. And that happened actually at Virginia Tech. And I look back at that and I'm like, I hope that student health is better because I had fallen off a horse and hurt my back. And they sent me out of student health with like Soma and Lortab. I was like, together? Like now I'm like, who did that? Because we can't, I would question that if I saw like a 19-year-old leaving that with two prescriptions like that. But anyways, so at this point, like I like to use different types of drugs, opiates, certainly, alcohol, yes. And I also too have been using cocaine because I got introduced to that by my coworkers at the last hospital I worked at. So, I think a lot of times people think, well, people are in the health profession and stuff like that doesn't happen. And I'm here to tell you that it does. Your classmates, your coworkers, and they're not bad people, but they are not well people. And it just became more normal for me to do that, and I didn't really see the problem as long as I was getting my work done, and wasn't having a lot of like legal consequences. So I'm marching through pharmacy school, doing okay. I'm well liked. I don't feel like I looked. I mean, that was a long time ago because I graduated pharmacy school in 2009, but I didn't look a whole lot different than I do now. Like I was a little smaller and whatever, but I wasn't like looking like I was a homeless person. And, that's a lot of the stigma is like, well, you're going to be able to outwardly tell. Like I'm going to look at you and be like, you got a substance use disorder. And you wouldn't have known that talking to me for a very long time. Like I was cordial, polite, but also too was like, you know, snorting cocaine before I went to class. Or, I had classmates who were from Kentucky where this is when the opioid epidemic became such a big thing, but it wasn't noticed quite like it is now. So like they're bringing OxyContin with them and we're doing that, you know, after we study or before we study. And um, so, it's terrifying to think that somebody that you're trusting as a health professional can be doing these things and still functioning. And I did. I wasn't practicing at this point. I was an intern, thank goodness. But my grades didn't really reflect it that much. I probably would have made straight A's if I had not like been using and spent my time studying more than recovering. But by the end of pharmacy school, when I was on rotations, I was at UVA for my very last rotation. So like I've done all the things. And like it's a drug information rotation, and I am living at home at this point because we're on rotations, and I'm driving from Lynchburg to Charlottesville every day. And it's a long drive. So, I need to like use a bunch of stimulants to get up there. So I'm like snorting meth going to my rotation. And that's terrible. But it's like the only way I knew to survive. That was the glue for me. I did not think I could function without some kind of substance helping me think straight, calm me down enough, focus me, make me enough. Because if you were to ask me, I never thought I was going to be enough for anybody. Like I wasn't going to be pretty enough. I wasn't going to be tall enough, smart enough. It was a mistake they let me into the pharmacy school. I really didn't belong there. I don't know how I got those grades. Like I never felt like I was, enough. But when you put substances in me, I was fine. So I'm on this rotation, and I'm struggling. Like at this point, you can look at me and think that there's something wrong because I'm like real skinny and just not present. I'm disappearing all the time. I'm late. I'm talking about like real random things, and I could still turn in a great paper, but like I'm also too like have like scabs and things, and I'm just flighty. And my preceptor, I'm so grateful for her because she called one of the deans and was like, something is wrong with Nikki. Like something's wrong with her. And he was like, oh, Nikki's just a little different sometimes. And she's like, no, something's really wrong. Like I think she's, got a problem. And I'll never forget, Dr. Stolte called me and he was like, don't go back to that rotation. And I was like, well, why? And he was like, you need to come up here. And he's like, we need to talk about what's going on. And I'm like, oh, heck. I was like, they're on to me. So like immediately I go to like a health provider and I'm like, quick, tell me something that's wrong with me, like, other than addiction. And, and they did because I did have other things going on, but it all was amplified by alcoholism and drug use. So I just kind of took a pause. I had like a week left of this rotation, and they were like, we'll just kind of figure out what's going on. And nobody had said, we think you're using. We just think there's something wrong. And like I was like, they're gonna catch me. And so like my solution, just disappear. Just leave. And so I just walked away from like all my pharmacy school, my parents who cared about me, my family. I just like left the state. And you know, mine is kind of like a dramatic-ish story, but I I want people to understand that I had every opportunity to do well. My mom got sober. I knew that there was recovery programs, but I thought she was different than me. And she was a sad drunk and like kind of pitiful. I wasn't going to be like that. That was not me. You know, I could handle what I was doing. I was smarter than that. And, you know, so I ended up getting really sick really fast. Um, so I ended up in some places that I pray nobody else ever does, with some people that definitely did not have my best interest. Um, you know, I honestly don't know how I survived all that. But, you know, and all through this time too, I still kept my job at the first hospital I worked at. And there's a whole lot of details to all this, but I ended up losing that job because they had found that I was diverting from there too. So there's like multi layers to this. And it wasn't just like I was taking a couple Lortabs, like I was taking like Dilaudid that we made the PCAs with. And so, you know, I would never imagine that I would have become somebody that used drugs intravenously, but it can happen that fast. You know, now there's, you know, the prevalence of like fentanyl and street drugs that are much more accessible than they were back then. But, you know, it happened super rapidly for me. And because I used so many different substances, like I would use enough stimulant to make sure I didn't like go into respiratory depression, and you know, enough opiate to make sure I didn't seem too wild. And you know, I played this game for a long time, and so I also was starting to have a lot of legal charges. Um, I had wrecked a car with a bunch of substances in it, and all these things are kind of crashing down all at once. Like consequences got too many too fast. And this is about the time that Johnny Moore is trying to get in touch with me. And he's like, Nikki, your employer's called. And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm going to a meeting. And I've made up some meeting. And he's like, okay. And I was like, I'll talk to you later. And he's not, you know, disappear for like another month. And I finally ended up back in Lynchburg, and all the pieces came together. And you know, you'll hear in recovery like sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was sick and I was really tired. So I had a lot of people that cared about me kind of descend upon me. They also had like every facet of the law after me. And those consequences are why I changed. I didn't change because people were nice to me. Like that wasn't going to work. So, I mean, they were nice enough to like draw me in and be like, hey, you know, we're going to give you this opportunity. But by the way, like you're going to go to prison if you don't get your, you know. So they all spoke to me and they're like, you know, you can go down here to this treatment center and, you know, just figure out what you got to do. And I was like, okay, you know, I'm just, I think I need a bath because I'm crunchy and gross and about like 80 pounds. So like I need a nap too. So I'll go down there and this will blow over. And I got there and they were like, well, do you want to stay for a month or do you want to stay for 12 weeks? And I was like, I don't even really remember the last 12 weeks of my life. So I think I'll stay and, you know, just this seems like a nice place. And, you know, from that point, like it was the first time I ever felt like I belonged somewhere. People were like, you're right where you belong. And we're glad you're here. And people didn't tell me stuff like that. They're like, Nikki's here, like get out, like, cause there's like destruction coming. So it was great to be somewhere where I felt like I finally was accepted for just being me. And that, you know, it was crazy. Like all I had to do was just to be normal was to be normal. And that sounds so silly, but like I thought I needed to like add things in to be that person. So to go back to in terms of my profession, so I'm a pharmacy student at this point. It's kind of strange territory. I'm in trouble with the board. But I was surrounded by a lot of people with a lot of support. Johnny, my coworkers, my people down there in the treatment center, and they helped me navigate through that because I was like not capable of doing that. So if it's somebody that thinks that they want to enter into recovery, but they're worried that they're going to get in trouble with their job or their license, you're probably not fixing it on your own. And there are people like Kate that can help you navigate all that, and they're a lot better at it. And I needed all the help I could get. So I ended up being in Williamsburg for about 12 weeks, and then I moved to Roanoke into a sober living facility or halfway house. And I, was still just kind of navigating my career, and I wasn't sure that I was ever going to be a pharmacist at this point. Like I was like, well, I'm not sure if I'll be alive, so like, I'll at least try and get this recovery part right, because if I don't, like, there's definitely no chance of being a pharmacist, and I don't even know if I should be. And I just was accepting of it. So I lived there for about a year. I could not get any kind of job. Like I applied at Lowe's, like garden nursery centers. The manpower was like, why are you here? Like you have all this education. And I'm like, well, like the legal part's a kind of a problem. And they're like, oh, okay. They're like, we type these many words per minute. I'm like, oh, I'm not incapable of doing things. Like somebody just has to trust me, let me in. And nobody was like, letting me come work for them, which is what I needed. I didn't need a job. I needed to figure out how to live like a sober person. And I had great recovery up there, amazing people, other practitioners that were in recovery that I met while I was in Williamsburg. They had a program there, and they still do, that is like tailored to people that are health professionals with addiction. And so, I got surrounded by all these people that they were doing it. And I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. They have an amazing group there called Caduceus, where it's all recovering health professionals. And like I went in and I was like, thought I needed to qualify to tell all these people. And they're like, oh no, girl, we understand. Like you're sick. You're just like us, come on in. And, they were the people that wrote letters for me to help me with like the felony stuff that I had going on, help me get into pharmacy school, because going back to the last rotation, once they found out what I was doing, they were like, they didn't really want to just let me graduate. So they had me repeat a whole year of pharmacy school, which I had not failed, but I had, obviously been under the influence for a good part of it. And that was the best thing that could have happened to me. So I left from Roanoke, went back to Winchester, sat in the dean's office with them. And it was awesome. Like I got like super proficient at everything infectious diseases. Like I learned so much. I made great relationships. I still talk to Marianne Kirkpatrick on the regular. It's just, it was exactly what needed to happen. It was really expensive, but it needed to happen. And it gave me the confidence that I needed, that, yeah, I do belong. Like I am supposed to be a pharmacist. I made some choices early on that led me to conducting my life in a less than desirable way, but I can do this and I would be good at this. So I had moved back to Winchester after being in Roanoke for a year, and completed that. They made me do infectious diseases, cardiology. I think they gave me like all the hardest rotations to do over again. And I was like, okay, guys. But I was like, fine, I'll do anything, And my level of submission and accountability, like and acceptance, I was like, I'll do whatever y'all tell me to do. I just don't want to go back to that life. I don't want to go back to living that life, being around those people, my family wondering where I am, I'll whatever. And so that's why I started pharmacy school in 2002, but I graduated in 2009 because I took a little long road there at the end. So when I graduated, I'm still like not really good at like normal people life, because like any person I picked was usually pretty destructive to hang out with. So I moved back home. Let me back up a little bit. Johnny knows more about my family life, but my parents were very caring. My dad was a very intense, caring, alpha engineering type male. And so, but he was everything to me. Like I did everything with my dad, and my last year of pharmacy school, when I was back up there sober, like right 2 days after Christmas, my dad got killed in a tragic duck hunting accident. Like their boat overturned, and him and his best friend, who also was a person that drove me to treatment, they both died. And I don't think I would have survived that had I not been sober. Like I don't, that could have been like the end for me. Um, and everybody was so supportive there at the pharmacy school. And, I just gotten a year of sobriety. And for Christmas, I gave my dad my year chip, and he died 2 days later. And so, I'm like kind of lost. I know I go to meetings and I'm around the people that get me, but I don't know, where else I fit in. And so when I graduated, I moved back home with my mom because she's now a widow, and I get a job in Lynchburg and at a long-term care pharmacy, and I have to tell them, I'm in recovery. I'm monitored. I didn't go much into depth about that, but through all this, and it was really confusing because I was like, my brain was very much recovering. I entered into the HPMP program, which back then, what was it, HPIP, maybe? It's had a lot of names. But I was monitored. I had to go to so many meetings. I had to keep a log of this. I had to go to this many drug tests for them, and I had to get a drug test for the state because I'd been in trouble with them, and I was on a first felon status. And so there was a lot of hoops, and I'm like, nobody is ever going to hire me, like ever. And I got a job, and it was a great job. It was a hard job. Long-term care is not for the faint of heart, but it was very rewarding. And I don't think, though, I would have stayed sober in my job had it not been for the monitoring program, because I would have to call every day and see if I needed a test, and then I'd have to get that test. And it did not matter what day of the week it was. It did not matter where I was. Like vacation, I would have to call. I have drug tested at the beach and in Nebraska and all these places. And so it is something that is very doable if you want to. It's not easy for a reason, but I'm like forever grateful for the monitoring program. They gave me structure and an outline for how to stay sober that I no way would have been able to develop for myself. I just didn't have that in me. So when I go to apply for this job, I'm like, hey, like, you have to know this. And they're like, oh yeah, we have one of these other people. And I was like, you did? And they're like, yeah, he's a great guy. And I was like, oh, and so they were very accepting of it. And it was like my drug testing site was right down the road, and it all fell into place. And I was there for about 6 years. And in this time, I ended up like, have this history of really bad men. And I finally have like given up. I'm like, I'm never meeting anybody. Like I'll be alone, and that's fine. It's good. I'll do what I want. But I ended up meeting my now husband. And so I met him in recovery. He is a normal person. Like he's an earth person. He can drink like a regular person. He doesn't have any of this, but his dad is in recovery. He passed away 2 years ago, but his dad had 40 some years of sobriety, and his mom died of alcoholism. So he actually picked me because I was sober, and he was like, oh yeah, you do the, like, you go to meetings. He was like, this is like a plus. And I was thinking, oh, I didn't think that was ever going to happen. But he supports me in everything in my recovery. I've gotten to have 3 beautiful little girls that have never seen me drink or use. I ended up leaving long-term care once I had my first baby, because being on call an hour away, my husband traveling, just wasn't going to work. So I went to work for Walmart. My manager there, or my district manager, he knows as well. And now I'm the person that when there's a problem, he calls me and he talks to me. He's like, hey, what do you think? Or I call him, I'm like, I think so-and-so, might need some help. What can we do? I live a fairy tale life. Like, if you would have told me that my life today would be what it is, like, I should have put a slide up of like what my life is, because it's literally like ponies and rainbows and little girls. Like, it's like fairyland, because it is. We've got all these little ponies and these happy kids, and my husband and I get along most of the time, except for when I like want to buy another pony or plant too many plants. But my mom knows where I am. She's sober. And, and I'm finally like, okay with me. Like I didn't need to go use something to come talk to you guys. I didn't need to feel like I wasn't going to be enough to come here today. I don't feel like I'm not enough to go do my job well. Like I'm on point. I show up at work and I'm a great pharmacist. I am like chop, 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 because you got to be quick if you're in retail. Like there's no time for being slow. But I also too can take time for my customers, my patients. I love helping people. And if you go into retail pharmacy or anywhere really in medicine, you have an opportunity to see people that are struggling. And I don't look at them like a problem. I look at them like that used to be me. Or that might be my kid. So it's important for y'all to understand that that's somebody's family. And I was that person at one point in time. And, the more people that understand and support recovery gives these people a chance to survive. Um, you know, I feel like I have a purpose that I'm here to help, and maybe that next person will be there for my kids or for your kids. And, it's just given me a perspective that I am so blessed to have. Like all that hard stuff I went through, I'm just so blessed to have that. I would not change any of it. I am remorseful that I hurt people. Like I don't want to have hurt people, but it brought me to where I am today, and if I could bottle it up and give it to people how good my life is, I would do it. Like it really is the best life. But, you know, without people like Johnny, Kate, all the people that were supporting my recovery, I wouldn't be here today. Like my 12-step program is how I learned to live. It's where I grew up. I didn't have any skills. And I learned all that there. I learned my pharmacy school knowledge from my professors, but like how to be a functioning adult, that came from AA. And I'm an available person. And I mean, saying that, if there's anybody here or if it ever comes up that you need to ask questions or need help, I'll make sure Kate has my number. I'll be glad to reach out to any of y'all, talk to anybody at any time. There's probably nothing you're going to say that I will like even make me blink, because I've kind of been there and done a whole lot. And you know what? You're still a good person. They're still good people. Those people that are your problem people out there, they are good people. That is not who they are. You take that out of them, they're a totally different person. So I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to be able to talk to y'all today. And hopefully it gives you some insight into, if you have a classmate that you're concerned about, like don't be afraid to say something, reach out to Johnny. There's a whole lot of resources, and you're not hurting somebody, you're helping somebody. Like the consequences are what help somebody get better. So, don't be afraid to say something. We're not going to take them out back and flog them. Like we're going to help them. So, that's about all I've got. If people have questions or is anything else you want me to say, Kate?
You can just keep the questions.
Okay.
Online.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for your story. I work in behavioral health as a really interesting at a community hospital, seeing the revolt door, seeing that a lot of people are discharged to crisis stabilization units, to these sober living facilities, and ultimately the resources are not there to keep them and keep whatever supported. I did listen to this recent thing on NPR about this alternative farm in Italy. JFK Jr. is a huge proponent of this, wants to bring them to America, these sober farms, quote unquote, where people are provided with a year or two of steady work, being plugged into a community, job, all of that, but it's incubated within. You said you liked your sober living facility, so I was curious what you liked about it, what you got there, maybe outside of there, what's missing from the American system.
Okay.
I don't know if you can answer that quickly.
No, I understand. So the question is, my sober living situation, what I liked about it, what made it work, and kind of comparing it to some things in Europe that are like sober farms where people have like an insulated society purpose. So maybe I should clarify a little bit about my sober living program or situation in Roanoke. I lived in a halfway house where it was kind of like being on Survivor Island. Like if they didn't like you, they were going to vote you out of there. Like, and so I quickly learned that I needed to insulate myself with other options. I had some great people there, and I had some people there that it was very eye-opening of how fast you could go back downhill. So that's the part I liked about it. It was not like super cush. Like it wasn't that. And the support I had was the people that were going to meetings and doing what they're supposed to be doing were doing okay. The other ones were back in, wherever they came from, back in jail. I very much attribute like it, it was something beyond me where these things fell into place. So while I was there, I said I couldn't get a job. Well, the job that I got was actually on a horse farm in Lynchburg. And a guy that one of my friends told, they said, "Hey, Nikki needs a job." And she didn't tell him what was wrong. She's like, "Nikki needs a job." And so JT Talon at Randolph-Macon Women's College called me and he said, "I hear you need a job." And I was like, yeah. And I went there and took care of 40 horses as a groom and did that for several months. And it was like the stalls were like a little Zen garden. Like I would just scrape them and the little poop would go away and it'd be all flat. And I was like, oh, and it really was like the best. And I mean, my dad was like, "You are going to drive all the way here?" It's like 5 minutes from where I lived in Lynchburg and I lived an hour away. I was like, absolutely. I do think that that would be a better option to having like my friends that have gone to like sober living, like communities. I think they have a better success rate because I had a lot of people that turned over where I was. So, but I was in the gratitude, like I loved it, like because I had these parts that were good, and that's the way I had to live. Like I had to live in gratitude, and so I could find the silver lining in just about anything. I did end up moving from there to a lady in recovery's house in Roanoke because I watched like two of my roommates like just beat the snot out of each other, and my therapist at that time was like, "Okay, well you've done your time there, you can move now." I was like, "Okay." So. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
In terms of, so I know you said that when you were, during your active addiction, when you were in, right before you kind of were pulled out and these consequences kind of all fell, right? I guess my question is, a lot of the time until the person is ready fully for themselves, especially when they're in the thick of it, let's say, it won't hit, it won't stick a lot of the time. You can beg, you can plead, but it's not, unless you're ready for yourself, it's not gonna work. How did you kind of facilitate that? Because it's not like you got cornered by perchance, but those consequences were catching up with you. How did you decide, like, okay, yes, this is, I need to do something about this now?
Yeah. Okay. So the question is, how do you get to the place where you're actually ready to accept help? And for me, and I mean, I very much understand what you're saying because as a child of an alcoholic, I thought if my mom loved me enough, she would quit drinking. Like, don't you love me? Won't you stop? And my mom loved me with everything, but she just couldn't. She just could not. And I didn't understand that until I could not. I kind of was cornered in a way. In terms of like my consequences, I had no job. I've been kicked out of school pretty much. I was in trouble with the law, with the felony status, like because they were going to charge me with distribution and things that they found in my car wreck. And then the diversion at the hospital. So like there was a lot that I couldn't get out of. And then I actually had come back to Lynchburg and I was in a house with a drug dealer and my parents and a bunch of friends surrounded the house. And the guy that I was there with was like, you have a problem. And this guy's like, guy that supplies me. He's like, you ain't right. Like, and he's like, and these people obviously care about you and this is too much. So you really should go talk to them. And, it was a moment of clarity. Like, it's not something that you can textbook say what to do. Like, I was tough. Like, I was tough to break down. I was not going to give up easily, but like, I had been running for a long time and I just couldn't run anymore. Like, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm too tired to do this, at least for now. Like, maybe if I catch my breath, I could do it again. But I just was like, and I hadn't fully submitted to wanting to get sober when I went down to that treatment center. I was just like, let's just get out of here. but once I got there, it was like this peace came over me, and that sounds real hokey, but like it truly did. I was like, I don't have to fight. I don't have to run. I'm here and it's going to be all right. Even if it's like, I don't have a job forever, like this is better than what I did. So that's why I really strongly say you have to meet your bottom. Like it has to be enough consequences for the person. And I have friends that didn't get to that place. Like you don't have to go to that place. But for me, like I thought I would outsmart it. And finally I was like, I can't, like I just cannot do this anymore. I don't have any more money. I don't have any more options, nothing. And so that's how.
We'll say we have a fair amount of supports for family members. And so like if you want to like chat with someone as a family member, we both have a regular family education group and we have a lot of resources in the community. And the research is very clear that when family members are involved, people's outcomes are better. So it's really easy to be in a place where you think it's hopeless or you think like, oh, well, it's all on that other person. And it's not, it matters what the environment people around somebody are doing. And so, just like it's really.
Yeah, that was a big part of it for me. My parents very much were invested and like willing to support me. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That was very powerful. I am impressed with your testimony and congratulations where you are here today. I would like to, I'm not going to psychoanalyze you because I'm a medicinal chemist. I make drugs, okay? So, like you will be living with drug load.
Yeah, I was like, where were you 18 years ago?
The question is, when you were growing up, you said you were a doll, okay? You were happy, you had loving family despite the fact of your mom's problem. But you were unhappy, you did not fit in. How your perspective on happiness changed from that time to today? Today you said that you are living fairy tale. How does this evolve?
Okay, so how do I go from what appeared as a happy child but not really being happy to being somebody that fits in today, and is happy with my life today? Going back to my childhood, like that part of that I didn't get into was there's a lot of like abuse that happened, not in my home, but like from a caretaker. And so that was like a very much a escalating factor of why I ended up the way I did too. I mean, it's not the only reason, but like being sexually abused as a small child definitely leads to a lot of issues. And my parents never knew about it. Person told me they would kill my parents if I told them. So, I lived my whole life with that. And I didn't even realize that it happened until I was in pharmacy school. I was sitting in my pharmacy school class and I went on the registry, the sex offender registry, and it all like started flashing back to me. It was crazy. But anyways, the acceptance that comes with recovery, like you can do all these things and survive it, and realizing that no matter what, it all works out. It doesn't have to be the way you want it. Like if it was the way I wanted it, I'd be dead. So that's where like the happiness comes from. It's like I just am happy with really anything. Yes, I have like a really fun life, but even if it wasn't that, like I was really happy when I had no job living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Roanoke. Like I was thrilled. I had no driver's license. I loved it. I ran, I walked, I got to see the Greenway all the time. So it's just been a pattern of that, like that gratitude that I have adapted from recovery, and then the acceptance that comes in recovery, knowing I don't have to be anything special. Like I just am me and it's okay. And so no matter where I am now, I'm pretty pleased. I mean, there's days at the Walmart that I'm like, ooh, I might be okay not being in this situation. But no, I mean, I really do see like the silver lining and everything. And that just comes from consistent recovery. I don't think it had not entered into recovery, I never would have gotten that. Like, I mean, it would have killed me. But I learned to forgive people. I don't feel like I have been mad at anybody anymore. I'm not resentful of anything. So, it's just a really different way of looking at everything. My perspective of everything has changed. I don't know if that answers it or not.
Thanks.
right, I know we're at time, so I'm sure we can stick around if folks have extra questions if you can, but I just want to thank you so much for sharing. We have our last tactical patient is me lecture next Thursday. It's in the School of Pharmacy, also available online. We go School of Public Health, one cap, sorry, right around the corner, and because they opened, he works in harm reduction, so it's gonna be wonderful.
Yeah, it's gonna be real good. So, great stuff. All right. Thank you. It's always different every time, right? Nice. I work for Ross. And I do.
And I want to do we've been friends ever since. So thank you so much. I work with them. And so there's a lot of other. But you said I right that everybody's from there. So I'm pleased. You have to get that place. So thank you very much.
What you do?
And sorry, I'm from Vincent, I get it. That's a real thing. That is.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was really fun. About your
Sure. So thank you. Small.
You know, she just is the best. Like, I'm just seeing her. They used to see her when I go there, and now she's like, she's back in there.
Yes, right. It's right.
Great, John. Good afternoon.
I know.
Yeah.
I keep telling her to go to Sponga. Turning in an action.
Yeah. So. She was an ally.
They bring experts in. I know, but Sarah Nelson, the Portuguese. He's awareness VJ there. He made good. I would.
That was pretty good.
It's too much. They're both rising.
Better for you.
I think that's.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. But it's hard out. Now, there was, being near their lunch, yeah, and they, yeah, and I miss it.
That's what I do love about it, like, everybody did everything for everybody, but it's like that. I try to be, it's too like, the other one, it was
I
like,
think that's where.
but I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're, this is working to like, you know, they typically do this. They have to put back down, there's pictures, you know, if they're, you know, playing. Yeah, I think, you know, how you feel, like, I just like,
So in Strasbourg, we have, even tell you as but it's independent on the scenes. We were already. I might go back to it. I know, and then, I know it's the break fast. And so what I like about that. I which I love, like, you don't, I just don't.
Something different, yeah.
That's on the slide.
Friends that take a lot of time, like, you know, you had this, they don't know, they're insurance and health, it is nice, like, so, like, but it's, I mean, I just, you know, it's very, it's not, that's where you go.
That's where you go. Or like, now. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like we can accuse like. Or like.
That's why, you know, I've heard from nurses have.
One of my.
It's so expensive to be able to. So, I've figured that out. Funny, because it's like.
Yeah. It is. It's definitely for a difference. Yeah. So thank you this week. Yeah. No, I know. But he's my. And I think he's good. But I think.
That I like. You've been to this.
So I just remember that they are. Yeah.
She'll bring more students who just go and help get tested. But.
Yeah, but I do.
Actually.
Recreational.
I think they work with some.
This.
They do oral swabs on camera and send it off to, package all. Send it off. And then they just. So, you know.
Yeah.
Testing.
Like that. Like the part is like they have to fit in and out.
But that means they have to take our class. Something like that. Just have room for and that was the part.
Sir. Why?
It's really like that.
Got it done.
But I just said my last one. He has been around, so he needs to come. But yes, did you read we just want to say, I'm Erica Krause.
I was over in clinic, so it's like, hey, for being here.
No, I have one to text Sarah and say, yes, you speak it, but I was like, inappropriate, and like when students say that, and need to text it. Sarah, not Sarah, Sarah from Edgeway. Okay, I don't know if you've met her. I haven't. Sarah Wheeler was in here. We did briefly, but that was only, I mean, like, in the more recent. kind of last thing. It's,
To see like.
Well, when you said Dr. K, we called her Dr. K. But she was here, taught me in lab, and then went there to be administrative. No, Dr. K was here. She was the head of lab. Like, she did all the things. Gosh, she left. I'm trying to think of when she went out to Shannon. Cause she was here with me, but then when I came back as faculty, she was already at Shannon.
She was excellent there.
Yeah, no, she is excellent. What do I know? That's what I remember her saying. We were doing her curriculum.
That's like really
Oh, she hasn't changed a bit.
We got it a little bit cooler. I was able to turn it down.